Over 80,000 tickets have reportedly been distributed ahead of AEW All In at London's Wembley Stadium today. Chris Jericho attacks his All In opponent Will Ospreay in London last night at a Rev Pro event. We got footage of that, plus also a first look at the setup inside Wembley Stadium for the big pay-per-view today. What was the outcome of the All-Star main event on AEW Collision last night on TNT? An FTW Championship match has been added to All In's 0 Hour pre-show. A TBS Championship match has been announced for next week's AEW All Out event in Chicago. An update on Nigel McGuinness and his status competing inside the ring today at All In. Also, could Captain Insano show up? Well, reportedly there were rumblings and plans that could have happened, and that strange AR Fox, Nick Wayne, Darby Allin segment, well, that was addressed on Collision. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling, particularly when it comes to today. It's AEW All In. It's AEW's biggest ever show at Wembley Stadium here in the UK, and a bit of an update as to the current tickets number for the show. Now, this number will still change, and it's getting more difficult to kind of pinpoint this, but WrestleTix is reporting on social media that as of an update that came yesterday, the total number of tickets distributed is 81,285. Now, they have posted that when they've been posting these updates, the map, the internal map, this is how the WrestleTix account kind of tracks things. The map has changed. The reason that's changed is because of production. They figure out what they're going to do with the set, the walkway, all that kind of stuff. Seats get opened up, seats get sort of taken away and moved around. For instance, WrestleTix reports that AEW added new floor seats just the other day, which sold out very fast, and then they filled the rest of the 200s behind the stage. They're basically saying send the pictures in and then to the account, and they can give a much better accurate number. Of course, AEW most likely is going to release their number as well. Now, there actually are, on the sort of map that Wembley have been using for this, there are actually 97,439 seats in total on the map, but of course a certain percentage are not going to be used for production, etc, etc, etc. They could possibly expand the current setup to 92,000 if needed. For those that are curious, what's the maximum attendance that they could do? Reportedly, it could be 92,000, but it's unlikely they're going to do that at this point. Again, the total number distributed is just over 81,000. Most likely at a push it might be 82,000, something like that. There are 106 corporate boxes at Wembley, but the problem is that WrestleTix don't really have access to anything like that. So the point being is that it's over 80,000. AEW have been pushing that number all week. The number that WrestleTix is reporting right now for being distributed is 81,285. As far as records and things of that nature, we're going to have to wait and see until AEW does release a press release. Most likely they will do an announcement of the number at the show. Whether or not that's going to be an inflated number like WWE tends to do, we'll have to wait and see. But let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section below. And are you excited for All In today? And one of the big matches at AEW All In is Chris Jericho versus London's own Will Ospreay. And Chris Jericho wasn't waiting for today's AEW pay-per-view All In to get his hands on his opponent, New Japan Pro Wrestling star Will Ospreay, because Jericho attacked Ospreay at Revolution Pro Wrestling's 11-year anniversary show in London, England, the same city where All In will be taking place. In the show's main event, Ospreay defeated Shingo Takagi, and once the match was over, New Japan Pro Wrestling star Zack Sabre Jr. came out to challenge Ospreay to a match on October 14 at the New Japan Royal Quest 3 show. Earlier on in the show, Sabre Jr. was in action against Ricky Knight Jr. After the challenge was issued, a masked Chris Jericho surprised Ospreay and hit him with a code breaker. To end the show, Jericho took off the mask to reveal that he indeed was the mystery assailant. Now, Jericho and Ospreay's current feud only started 2 weeks ago on the August 16 episode of Dynamite. Ospreay attacked Jericho on behalf of Don Callis, and on that same night, Jericho challenged him to a match at All In. The contract signing happened this week on August 23rd's episode of Dynamite, and not surprisingly, it ended with the two brawling and having to be broken up. Today's match will be the first time that Jericho and Ospreay will be in a ring together. Jericho made his presence known 5 years ago at AEW All In, of course, when in a mask, dressed this time as Penta El Zero Miedo. He attacked Kenny Omega. Meanwhile, Will Ospreay was actually not at the event. Here's some footage shot by a fan of Jericho's attack on Ospreay. wonder who's going to be the heel and the babyface in that one. Well, we've got the first look also at the setup inside Wembley Stadium for AEW All In today. A new look has emerged on the construction and the set for AEW All In at Wembley Stadium ahead of tonight's big show. Today, AEW will host one of the biggest wrestling shows of all time, with All In set to take place in front of a live audience of over 80,000 fans. Now, Austin Gunn and others have now given their first look inside the stadium ahead of the event. Austin Gunn actually posted on his Instagram story and then he deleted it, probably being told, don't put that up. Now, while appearing in front of 80,000 fans would be a huge moment for anyone on the roster, several AEW stars are unable to attend the show. Ethan Page announced that he can't attend the show due to being landlocked. Some people are applying for green cards at the moment, therefore they have to stay in the United States. So there's quite a few people that are actually unable to attend AEW All In today. Some people that haven't been announced for the show, i.e. Sammy Guevara, have posted pictures of themselves in London, so most likely they'll probably be involved in the Chris Jericho Will Ospreay match. But what are your thoughts on the setup? Again, it's still very difficult to kind of see the set, if there is one or anything like that. So if we get any more clearer pictures ahead of the show, we'll let you know. Of course, a reminder for AEW All In, we will be live today for a watch-along and a post-show, as well as all of the reaction coming out of it. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Click the notification bell. You'll be notified when we go live for the big event later on today. Well, of course, we're going to be live for the 0 hour pre-show as well, which is going to have several big matches involved too. Now, AEW Collision was last night on TNT. You kind of forget it was taped this past Wednesday after Dynamite. And in the final match before the biggest show of AEW's 4-year history, the all-star team of CM Punk, Sting, Darby Allin, and Hook emerged victorious in the main event of Saturday night's AEW Collision against Jay White, Luchasaurus, Swerve Strickland, and Brian Cage. With multiple feuds for AEW, All In entangled into one chaotic 8-man tag team match in Duluth, Georgia, it was the babyfaces who continued to build momentum less than 24 hours out from performing in front of 80,000 at the iconic Wembley Stadium. Punk and Strickland kicked things off, with the real world champion mixing up with a couple of fresh faces in the early stages of the match. The heels took over at different points throughout the 30-minute clash, but it was Punk who started to get the crowd on their feet in the home stretch with a top rope elbow to White. As things broke down and referee Bryce Remsburg lost control, Punk ultimately gained the win for his team after hitting a GTS and locking in the Kikina clutch on Cage. After the conclusion of the match, all hell broke loose as Samoa Joe and Jack Perry made their way down to the ring to send Collision off the air with a wild melee, with the current Ring of Honor World Television Champion standing tall with his title raised high. Punk will now move on to a massive blow-off match with his longtime rival Joe in London, capping off 2 decades of history, while the duo of Sting and Darby Allin will face off against the aforementioned Strickland and Christian Cage in a coffin match coming up from the losing side of the ledger on Saturday night. Bullet Club Gold will team up with Konosuke Takeshita to face the Golden Elite in a blockbuster trios match as well. Now, speaking of Collision, last night it was confirmed an FTW Championship match is taking place today at AEW All In on the 0 hour. Jack Perry's continued attempt to tarnish the legacy of the FTW Championship was stopped dead in its tracks on AEW Collision, and his reign with the title could set to come to an end at Wembley Stadium today. After weeks of running down ECW and defeating Rob Van Dam to retain the title on the August 9 edition of Dynamite, Perry was slated to retire the long-standing Rebel Championship less than 24 hours before AEW's biggest show to date, All In. Opening last night's episode of Collision, Perry made his way out to the ring with flowers and funeral proceedings and shared his memories with the bout before grabbing a sledgehammer as he looked to put an end to the FTW title's legacy. However, his tag team partner turned bitter rival Hook would make his return after a 6-week absence, suplexing Perry through a table and challenging him to a match at All In tonight at Wembley Stadium. So the match has now been confirmed. It's going to be taking place on the 0 hour pre-show, as I mentioned. Perry defeated Hook last month in Boston to win his first singles title in AEW, ending a 357-day reign for the Tough as Nails New York product. Other FTW champions include Hook's legendary father Taz, the originator of the title in the 1990s, as well as Sabu, Ricky Starks, and Brian Cage. So that match is confirmed to be taking place tonight in London. Another match confirmed to be taking place not tonight in London, but next week in Chicago is a TBS Championship match. Yes, Chris Statlander will be defending the championship at the United United Center. In, I suppose, some disappointing news for our growing fan base, TBS champion Chris Statlander will not be featured on AEW All In at Wembley Stadium, but the powerhouse will be in action a week later in Chicago, Illinois. After running through the competition on AEW programming in recent months, since ending the undefeated streak of Jade Cargill at Double or Nothing, the 28-year-old was left without a challenger following recent victories over Mercedes Martinez and Anna Jay. But on Saturday night's episode of AEW Collision, Ruby Soho threw down the challenge to Statlander, with the current champion accepting for the upcoming AEW All Out pay-per-view at the United Center. In two separate backstage interviews, the two main event level female stars traded barbs and will now throw down in the Windy City. So this joins other matches set for the show, such as, of course, Powerhouse Hobbs versus Miro. At this stage, the only women's match slated for London will see AEW Women's World Champion Hikaru Shida defend her title in a four-way match against Britt Baker, Toni Storm, and Saraya. A large contingent of fans had been clamoring for Statlander to be featured at AEW All In, but it appears the TBS champion will not be making the trip to the United Kingdom. Instead, she'll be defending her title in Chicago. Now, a bit of an update as to Nigel McGuinness, because it doesn't look like we're going to be seeing Nigel McGuinness wrestle on AEW All In. Now, recently, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select reported that Nigel McGuinness had taken steps to return to in-ring action ahead of AEW's All In show in his home country of England. However, McGuinness has claimed he won't be wrestling on the show. When speaking to Fightful at the media junket ahead of AEW All In, Nigel McGuinness said that he would not be wrestling at All In, and he specifically cited Bryan Danielson being injured as something that kept him from wrestling on the show. He also noted that he believes he is better as a commentator. So McGuinness says he's not going to be wrestling. Could he get physical? Anything's certainly possible. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe he just didn't want to let the cat out of the bag. Now, Captain Insano, this is such a strange story. So Captain Insano at one point maybe was booked for AEW All In. He still could appear. In late 2022, Paul White finally made his return as Captain Insano on AEW TV. Now, if you're not familiar, Captain Insano is a character from the 1998 Adam Sandler movie, The Waterboy. This was made possible as in March 2021, All Elite Wrestling filed for the trademark of Captain Insano, allowing them the rights to use the name. However, that may not be the last we've seen of Captain Insano. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select has been told that there has been Captain Insano gear being made for a possible use of the character, though we haven't really heard any more details about it beyond that. Paul White himself, the Big Show, whatever you want to call him, hasn't wrestled since March 2022. White has said recently that it's a possibility for All In. Beyond that, Fightful had heard that a match that was actually discussed for the show was Captain Insano, Matt Hardy, and Jeff Hardy, or a possible replacement. Get to that in a second, versus Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, and Satnam Singh. Of course, Jeff Hardy can't get into the UK because of his legal issues, so that's where the replacement might have come into it. They've also heard that Satnam Singh may have had complications too. Again, most likely that might be due to the green card process, a bit like what Ethan Page is saying. To apply for the green card, you have to be sort of landlocked in the US for a period of time, and that might be the situation for AEW All In. Adam Sandler is a noted wrestling fan, and he admitted in a recent interview with Chris Van Vliet, but we haven't heard anything else. So could he appear? Anything's possible, I suppose. Finally, a lot of people were talking about this segment on Dynamite this week, whereby AR Fox was kicked out of the Mogul Embassy, and then 2 seconds later, Darby Allin just said, it's all fine, and shook his hand, and everything's forgiven, despite the fact that 2 weeks ago, they crossed state lines and nearly murdered Nick Wayne. So, this segment was addressed last night on AEW Collision. On Dynamite, as I mentioned, there was an unexpected change to a match at All In. As AR Fox was kicked out of the Mogul Embassy, he was replaced by Christian Cage as being Swerve Strickland's partner against Darby Allin and Sting. In a move that may ultimately come back around, some people are speculating could be a giant swerve, Darby Allin very quickly accepted the apology of AR Fox, despite what he and Swerve did to Darby's protege Nick Wayne. However, on last night's Collision, the turn of events was brought up in a backstage interview segment where Lexi Nair was with Darby Allin and Nick Wayne until the pair were interrupted by AR Fox. Attempting to explain his rationale for his dastardly actions of late, Fox claimed that a recent loss to Orange Cassidy just made him snap and lose sight of himself. Apparently so much that he travelled across state lines to commit a felonious assault on Nick Wayne at his family's wrestling school, but nevertheless, Wayne was not impressed with the apology, as he shouldn't be. While he walked away without shaking AR Fox's hand, Darby again was quick to accept the apology, shaking Fox's hand to end the segment, and What do you think about this? Do you think it lacked a lot of logic? What were your thoughts on Darby being so forgiving? Is this a giant swerve? Could we see AR Fox maybe not get involved today because he might not be in the UK, but certainly next week when it comes to the TNT Championship match against Luchasaurus? Let me know your thoughts about that, because certainly, again, it was very odd. But there you go, guys. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.